Hello and greetings from New York. Thank you for having me at FinFair Asia. My name is Michael Beda, and for the next couple of minutes I'm going to be talking to you about Chinese peer-to-peer lending. In 2015 I had the pleasure of co-founding and now serving on the board of directors of Huaxia Finance, China's 8th largest peer-to-peer company. I understand there's a lot of confusion about the industry. I know a lot of people are interested in the industry. And to have me at FinFair Asia this year is an absolute pleasure. And hopefully I can address some of the key points that most of our investors are looking at, most of our borrowers are looking at, and most of our shareholders are talking about as well. So really I think to first talk about really what is peer-to-peer lending, what is marketplace lending, what is microcredit financing, and what are the factors for success that really cause this to become a $500 billion US industry in China over the course of a couple of years. Is peer-to-peer lending is essentially just writing a credit card. It's as simple as one man or one woman lending money to another individual, what we call the world's oldest profession, really. Looking at that and saying, how can we standardize this system? Standardize a system of loans, a system of interest. And it started with the idea that most people in China, with the advent of the smartphone and especially with the proliferation of WeChat across China, have become digitally connected. But there is still a large part of the market which is traditionally underserved by the banks. You think of most people in Tier 3 or Tier 4 cities don't have ready access to capital. Even in some two-tier cities around Shanghai, we could say that the average worker may not be able to go to the bank and apply for a car loan, or maybe it's Double 11 and you want to buy the latest iPhone, or maybe it's Singles Day and maybe it's Valentine's Day. Young men spending money on young women is one of the oldest games in the book, and so our idea was extending safely a line of credit and a loan out to these individuals that were traditionally underserved by the banks. And we are by no means, the only good peer-to-peer company in China or the only successful peer-to-peer company in China. We simply took the westernized idea of credit and adapted it to Chinese standards. This did have a few complications at first. We could start with lender education, really, or investor awareness. In the West, we would call that due diligence. But looking at some factors of, when we first started in June 5th of 2015, the message that we were trying to get across to investors on one end was telling them that this type of wealth management product existed. That they could lend their money out through us, through a platform where we would safely choose loans and divvy their money up between those loans. And we could give the investor, at that time it was 12% annually, as a contractually obligated payment. And this was something that was fairly unheard of for a fixed income investment, for something that was safe, that was transparent, that was readily accessible, that was accessible via app and website. It was something new in China. And one of the reasons where I got involved with this was we extended this service out to the foreign community as well. So it was one of the first times that it allowed foreigners and foreign wealth management companies and foreign investment banks to really invest into the Chinese people and stimulate consumerism. And at that time, 2015, it was really trying to explain the message and explain what peer-to-peer lending was and explain what microcredit financing was, and even to borrowers of trying to explain to them that these types of loans are available for cars or iPhones or even dinners or paying your rent. Or plastic surgery, a big business as well. But really just letting people know that this type of business is available. Now we see people are far more educated towards it, and our educational method has really moved to explaining why we're better than the competition, let's say, or why our platform may be more suited to the individual than a competitor's platform. And I guess the biggest question I get asked on a regular basis is what are some of the ways that we can see what are the good peer-to-peer companies or what are the bad peer-to-peer companies, as if you are involved with Chinese P2P lending. You do know that there have been some bad companies in the history of this industry. And yes, I'm not going to disagree with that. Every industry has some bad eggs. Every industry has bad apples and outliers. And this industry is no different. It's something that, personally, I despise companies that have come in and taken advantage of investor trust, and it's given ourselves and any good peer-to-peer company a much harder time in doing something that really is a straightforward wealth management product. Peer-to-peer lending is a wealth management tool like any other, like real estate, like insurance, like a bond. And it really needs to be approached with the same caution and the same mentality as you or I would invest into a stock or a bond or another company. I think there's a tremendous amount of due diligence that needs to be done before any investment. And taking just a few moments, a couple minutes to half an hour to look into the company, look at some reviews, look at how they work, look at how they operate. Make sure you know what you're getting involved with. And that goes for any investment, not just peer-to-peer lending. But I still recommend the industry. You don't have to invest in us, although you should. But I do recommend the industry, and I do recommend that anyone watching this take a look at the industry. It's a wealth management tool that I still use today. It's a phenomenal way to diversify into fintech. And I guess what are people looking at if they're interested in this sector, and the market trends are consistently changing. And it's something that even as somebody who's directly involved in the industry is tough to keep up with. It was funny, last July, it was the first time since we opened that our app actually outpaced consumers rather than our website. And we've seen this further explode, that we're at the point now where the app gets about 400 to 500% more traffic than our website. And I think that speaks a lot about consumerism today, and especially about the on-the-go mentality. People want to ingest their news on the run, their entertainment, and even wealth management products. So we've really seen far more of a trend in terms of getting involved with the younger generation, getting involved with the mobile generation, and especially getting involved with, let's say, not just the younger generation, but the new digital generation. And by that, I also mean senior citizens or middle-aged that are finally starting to really break into technology and become accepting of this type of medium of communication. This is by far the largest market segment. For borrowing, for actually issuing the loans of what we're looking for the recipients of our investments, they're quite cyclical. And as of today, doing this pre-recorded message for you all, it's now right at the start of June in the summer, which means we're going to see a great uptick in consumer spending for cars, for vacations is quite large with us. We work with quite a few tour agencies, quite a few travel companies, a lot of wedding planners as well for summer vacations, as well as your plastic surgery and maternity related costs as well of having a child is no small expense for anyone that's been involved with that, and this is where we see a large trend of who we're looking to help give financing to. I guess the next thing that I'd like to talk about, and the next aspect that most of our investors are looking at is what are the biggest issues that people should be aware about in peer-to-peer lending. And it's not something I can predict with 100% certainty, but I can tell you now, and I can tell you everything that I know, that we're going through a phase with the CBIRC of re-registration, re-regulatory issuance, and re-examination. So really in 2015, December 28, 2015, off until January 3rd, 2018, there were numerous regulations enacted in peer-to-peer lending, and those have come into full effect as of April of this year. And so what we're looking at now is the government regulatory bodies and governmental issuance groups are starting to take a more proactive look towards peer-to-peer, which is a phenomenal sign of movement in the market. It's a phenomenal sign of transparency. Any investor, this will only benefit as they are now privy to a lot more information, a lot more streamlined information is by going on our website. You can see it is in Chinese, but under the investor relations section, let's say, you can see how many loans were issued that day, how many loans are defaulting. You can see which grade of loans we're writing as standardized by auditing. We have KPMG do our auditing. But you can take a very close look and a very transparent look, and a look that you or any investor should be able to have. And so it's great for the market. It's great for all the good companies. And it's really, as somebody with a traditional financial background, it's glorious to see that something that started as fintech, that really started as fringe fintech, has now come into the mainstream eye. So it is very exciting to see. The next biggest step that we see is AI and blockchain technology becoming far more important in this industry. Especially AI, as we're processing essentially risk management information, risk data, and quantitizing that information into what you or I would call a credit score. Now, of course, this is not an easy task to do, and in China, as well as most Eastern countries, compiling a credit score is still new, and it still has nuances to it, and it still has a lot of complexities to it. And although we use an ever-changing algorithm that's quite frankly too long to remember, a lot of our work is still done by humans and by good old-fashioned human intuition. We're going to see some of the biggest changes in peer-to-peer lending being brought about by artificial intelligence and especially machine learning and machine processing. And for those designing artificial intelligence algorithms and looking at blockchain technology in order to verify steps of data in a chain in order to really ensure authenticity of information and paperwork, peer-to-peer lending is probably going to be the most accepting aspect of the Chinese economy to really accept this type of business and this type of technology. Is one of our largest costs. Are not salespeople or wealth management guys or risk management underwriters. It's essentially paperwork, and it's people, and it's having a human being look at a credit score and try to compile that information and try to compress that into a number that we can then work with. And we've spoken with numerous artificial intelligence companies, and really I can tell you that every time we speak to one, we're getting closer and they're getting closer to really designing something and coming up with a structure that would benefit both parties. Do I think the technology's there now? I don't know. I would say it's close. I would say maybe by the time, if you're not watching this at FinFair, if you're watching this on the internet a month or two after I gave this presentation or gave this speech, the technology may be there, which is very exciting. And especially looking at AI and looking at peer-to-peer lending, it's a technology that moves very quickly. And it's something that you really need to have your finger on the pulse of. So for anyone in AI, anyone in blockchain, I would take a look at peer-to-peer lending and especially microcredit financing, as this will be one of the most accepting industries, especially in China. To finalize, I just want to say over the next 6 months, we're going to be looking at a couple big factors in peer-to-peer. We'll probably see some mergers, some acquisitions. We're going to see some buyouts of some of the largest peer-to-peer companies purchasing up the smaller companies. These will be exciting times. Keep in mind that if you are getting involved with this field, the most important thing to do is due diligence. Call somebody. You can call me if you'd really like, and have a chat and have a discussion and see where they see the market going. Right, as a wealth management product, as an investment. The most important thing is to have an understanding of how it works, and as an aspect of Chinese economy. As my training classically was when I was in college and entering the workforce, I trained as an economist and an analyst, and I think the most incredible thing about this industry is really seeing the size and the scope and the speed of it. Is the first peer-to-peer company came to China in 2007. It was a $50 million industry until 2014, and now just a few short years later, it's a $500 billion company with 8 of the Chinese peer-to-peer companies listed on either NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. Keep looking out. You're going to see some big changes soon. Thank you all for having me, and please have a great rest of your summer. Thank you.